Hey, what's up guys, it's me Steven, and today I'm kind of doing like a bit of a bonus video, I guess. So something I did was I changed my computer up a bit. It doesn't look like how it's been. I'm running Linux instead of Windows now. Don't worry though, I still have my Windows files backed up. In fact, funny enough, my 2 terabyte hard drive right here still has all my Windows files on it that I originally had saved, so I can always go back to these if I need to. And then I cloned my M.2 SSD that I had my Windows 10 operating system installed on and a lot of my files on. I cloned that to an external USB hard drive, so I can always recover my Windows 10 operating system and those Windows files that were saved on the same drive that I had Windows installed on. That includes like all my documents. In fact, funny enough, I can plug in that external drive right now and it'll just show up all my old files on there and like my old documents. It's kind of interesting, but now I did add a 2 terabyte SATA SSD, so I now have another SSD on the system. It's a SATA one because my motherboard, as far as I'm aware of, only supports one M.2 SSD that you can put on it, but it has SATA ports still, so it still had another SATA port available. So I bought a 2 terabyte SATA SSD. It was actually a Samsung one. Plugged it in and everything, and now it's on my PC, it's on my system, and that's where I'm going to be installing most of my Steam games onto, just so that they run faster. But I'll still utilize this drive somehow. I'll figure out something with it. Linux comes in different flavors or different distributions. If I go to my settings real quick, we can kind of go ahead and take a look. Come on. Here, let me just type it here. That'll work better. To be fair, I could just click the shortcut down here on my desktop. Yeah, there's a light mode and a dark mode. I'm of course on the dark mode. If you want to know what I'm doing, I'm downloading another Ubuntu ISO image. It's because I want to test out. I'm going to be testing out virtual machines using QEMU and Virtual Machine Manager. But good about this system, it won't show my stuff or anything. It just shows what I'm running. So I'm running Ubuntu version 22.04. This the reason why I'm not running version 23.04 is because while that's the latest version, it doesn't have long-term support. So this is the LTS, or long-term support version of Ubuntu. It's the latest Ubuntu I can get of long-term support. Here, I'll go ahead and I'll pull over Chrome for you. So if we go to, this is Ubuntu's official website. If I go to download and I get Ubuntu desktop, they recommend immediately LTS. That stands for long-term support. And basically, I get 5 years of free security and maintenance updates guaranteed. So, wow, with this one, you get 9 months of security and maintenance updates. I'm assuming at that point you have to like update your OS or something. You might have to like reinstall it, and so I just thought that the long-term support would be the best one. Now, to be fair, this might be better because it's like the latest, but I really I want the security updates. And also, I'm not even running the desktop environment that this comes with. So, for example, this kind of looks a little bit similar to Windows, but it's not. Normally here, let me pull Chrome back up here. Normally when you first install Ubuntu, your desktop environment will look like this. Let me see if we can just pull it up, or can I just want to look at the image, or can I just look, I just want to look at the, here I can probably do this. Save image as, let's open it up, maximize it. This is what your desktop environment will look like when you install pure Ubuntu, just right away. It uses a desktop environment called GNOME, which is kind of similar to the desktop environment that you would have on Mac OS, where basically it has the little circles when you open applications. When you click a button down here, it pops up like a little thing, like it pops up similar to whatever pops up on Macs. I forget what they call it. But I'm using a desktop environment called KDE Plasma. It's a lot like, think of it as like, it's very similar to Windows. It looks similar to modern Windows. It has a start menu right here. I can customize this. I just haven't gotten much customization. I was using the out-of-the-box GNOME desktop environment that comes with Ubuntu, but then I decided to install Plasma. This is a thing called Dolphin. Dolphin's the file manager that comes with that KDE Plasma uses. There is another one that you can use for, but yeah, Ubuntu comes with its own that's just called Files, but there's that. This is a little software manager called Discover. It's what is also used on Plasma. But Snap Store is what comes with Ubuntu. This Snap Store is what it uses for GNOME and everything, but you can use this as well instead if you prefer to use this over using the other one, which with me, I think this one is nicer. I prefer the look of this of the Snap Store, which is why I'm just going to be using the Snap Store probably to install most of my software. Yep, I have to update this, but of course, because I'm running it, I can't update it. So let me see if I can update software and updates. Yes, you have to put in I have to put in a password every time. Updates. I'm looking for. Yep, not for that. For software. Yep, this one. Well, what about? Yeah, there's no proprietary. Well, I have an AMD system, so I don't have to use proprietary drivers or anything. Ubuntu Pro, that just gives you more features. You don't really have to have it. But Linux comes in many different flavors, or they are also called distributions. There's different distributions of Linux. So for example, I'm using Ubuntu. Now, when I first switched, I was actually using what's called Manjaro. It's based off of a Linux distro. Here, I'll kind of show you Linux distros. Distro is short for distribution. Here's kind of I can kind of give you a little list right here. This actually kind of looks a little overwhelming. List distributions list. Here's just some major ones, but here's Linux Mint. It's based off of Ubuntu, which is what I'm using right now. Then here's Ubuntu. Ubuntu is also based off of a different distribution. It's based off of one called Debian. It also has alternate variances of it, like Kubuntu, which is a lighter weight version, and Lubuntu is also another lighter weight version. And then of course, Linux Mint's based off of it. There's other things on here as well. So, but Linux Mint, here, this is kind of what Linux Mint looks like. It's based off of Ubuntu, so it uses the same software for the most part, and you can install software essentially the same way, and it uses the same terminal commands as well. So there's that. Generally speaking, you want to pick a distribution that's relatively popular and kept up to date. I don't typically like to go to these pros and cons. The reason why is because they aren't very good. They just aren't the best to use. Don't search this either, because don't ever search for best gaming Linux distros when you're thinking about switching. Generally speaking, these are generally speaking not very good sites, because look, Fedora, for example. First of all, they list Fedora as number 1. Fedora is a Linux distribution based off of another one called Red Hat, which is used by it's used on servers, on like big servers that like big banks and corporations use. A lot of financial stuff on here. But apparently gaming on here is easy. I haven't tested that, so I might test that later. We'll see. I'll do it through a virtual machine. But I like how it says on pros, a stable distro for its release cycle, great for GNOME lovers. GNOME's a desktop environment that comes with Fedora. It also comes with Ubuntu. I just manually installed a different desktop environment, which was actually really easy. I executed like one command, and then just did it. I like typed in one command on the terminal. Didn't think it'd be that easy to install a new desktop environment over another. Installing NVIDIA drivers is pretty easy. That's because that's a big downside about Linux, is if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, it's a real pain in the ass to get your graphic card drivers to work properly. It's really difficult. If you have an AMD graphic card like I do, all your graphic drivers are pre-installed right out of the box. So, like my AMD graphics card, it's a Radeon RX 5500 XT. I would say it's a pretty decent graphic card that's good for gaming. So it's a good gaming graphic card, not like amazing, not top of the line. There's definitely better AMD graphic cards I could get, but it gets the job done for doing some good gaming on here. So it works well, but yeah, that graphic card works right out of the box. And I also have my CPU works pretty well too. But generally speaking, if you have an Intel CPU, it should still work just fine with most Linux distributions. But I like how it doesn't come with any doesn't come pre-installed with game launchers. That basically is just saying it doesn't come pre-installed with Steam or Lutris, and it doesn't come with Wine. Wine is a software that is a compatibility layer that to run Windows applications on either Linux or Mac OS. Yes, there's a way to kind of get some Windows software to run on Mac OS by using Wine. You just have to use it correctly. But Lutris is what's called a front end. So it's a front end for Wine. I'll go ahead and launch it. This would be my first time launching it on this system, so it'd probably take a minute. But Lutris is a front end, so it kind of compiles. It works with Wine to have your games run properly. It also allows like Origin, the new EA game launcher, and the Epic Games Store, Epic Games Launcher to all work on here. When it comes to running some games, or same with GOG too. You can link your GOG. I mean, now my Steam's already on here, but that's because it just detected Steam on my system and downloaded it right away. But you can kind of already see that. So basically, it's just saying it doesn't come with those right out of the box. You have to install them. Rather, if you install them through what's called a package manager, which is either, like for example, Snap Store or Discover. if you have Manjaro, you'll have add/remove software. On Linux Mint, I think it's just called software installer or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. If you have Pop! OS, it's going to be called the Pop Shop. All that stuff. And then Fedora, I don't know what Fedora uses. But look, UI could be a bit too overwhelming. I mean, I guess that's at least a decent con to lay on there, but once again, and yes, installing NVIDIA drivers being easy is a good pro, but I don't want to put highly customizable as a pro when you're focusing on just gaming. You're just trying to play some games. You don't really need too much customization. Pop! OS, the gamers love Pop! OS, and look, it doesn't come with pre-installed launchers. Very stable thanks to Ubuntu base. That's at least a good one. Yeah, there's an NVIDIA ISO. I mean, people have actually had a lot of problems using Pop! OS. If you ever watch Linus Tech Tips, he did a Linux daily driver challenge where him and his other person that works at Linus Tech Tips both ran Linux on their main home gaming PCs for about a month, just to test it out, just to see how it would work. Linus started with Pop! OS, but he screwed it up because it wasn't working to install Steam properly, so he did it through the command line, and for whatever reason it broke his desktop environment and removed it, which it shouldn't be able to do, and that's actually a common problem, and the only way to fix it is to reinstall Pop! OS. So it's really dumb. So Pop! OS is popular with gamers, but there will be people that will tell you how it actually can be bad. It doesn't just work like they say it does. So Pop! OS is probably not a good one to go with. But Ubuntu, I'm using Ubuntu right now. Yes, the NVIDIA drivers don't come pre-installed, but that's fine. New features from GNOME taking time to appear. Well, I mean, it's just a desktop environment. It's not that late. This looks fine to me. And this is the most popular Linux distribution after SteamOS. If you want to know why, SteamOS, which is the operating system that runs on the Steam Deck and ran on the previously failed Steam machines, it's an operating system based off. It uses Linux. It's actually based off Arch Linux, which is what Manjaro is also based off of, and it's what's run on the Steam Deck. And it runs pretty well. I'll go ahead and open Steam for you real quick, just to kind of show you what Steam looks like on here. So here's Steam. It runs normally. There are games that natively run on Linux, but you can do this thing if you go to Steam, you go to Settings, and you go to Compatibility, and you check Enable Steam Play for all other titles. You can select Proton, you can select different versions. I'm currently on Proton Experimental. Proton is a compatibility layer made by Valve, who are the makers of Steam. It uses Wine to have, which is also a compatibility layer, to have to allow Windows games that are on Steam to run on Linux. So you can install it and run it. However, different games do work differently. Not all games work perfectly. So if you go to protondb.com, this is the official site where you can search for games compatibility. You can also search for how they're compatible on the Steam Deck specifically, not just on a Linux system. So if I want to search Resident Evil. Now, Resident Evil 4 actually has an official Linux port of it. The Resident Evil 4 remake has a native Linux version, so you don't need Proton to run it, but you can run the Proton version. They have different ratings, like Gold and Platinum. Platinum means it's perfect. Like, for example, Here's Resident Evil 4 2005. It's just the HD remaster of the original one. It has a platinum rating, so it runs perfectly by just clicking install. These gold ones run perfectly after a few tweaks. These are not big tweaks or anything. They typically run just fine. And then on this side, it'll show you how they run on the Steam Deck. So if it's a check mark, it means Steam Deck verified. It means it'll run perfectly on the Steam Deck. And it just works. If it has an exclamation mark, it just means it's playable on the Steam Deck, which means you might have to do some tweaking, put up the Steam Deck keyboard, whatever you might need to do to get it to work. And then, of course, if it has like this, it means it's completely unsupported on the Steam Deck. They haven't found a way to get it to work. Now, you could still install it and try to figure it out, but it's not recommended. Yeah, like Resident Evil 0, I can't play that on my Steam Deck. At least it's not advisable. But this is just the Japanese version of Resident Evil 7. It actually does run just fine on here. And there are other games you can always check. Like, we'll check GTA. Let's try Grand Theft Auto. So you can see some of these games run just fine. They don't all run good on the Steam Deck, but they run fine on Linux through the Proton compatibility layer. Let's try Red Dead. I'm just putting in popular Steam titles that you might want to run, and see they run just fine. Now you can install any of them, even if they don't work good. It just means that they might not necessarily run well. Like, for example, if I go and you want to run you want to run old games that like old PC games from like late 90s, early 2000s that you can still download on Steam. You can check to see how they work. So Roller Coaster Tycoon Deluxe, this is the original Roller Coaster Tycoon with its expansion packs that it had. It runs just fine. And I've even tried it myself. It runs just fine. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, probably the best one, but that's just because you can get a giant open land and just build your park around it, instead of this one's much more mission based. Then Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, I mean, not the best Roller Coaster Tycoon game that you necessarily won't want to play, but it's fine. Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic, basically just cash grab version of the first two games. I mean, you can run it. I wouldn't run it, but you can run it. Just stay away from these things when you're thinking about just think about the don't look at this kind of list. Do your own research. Really, the best Linux distributions you can start with is Ubuntu, Linux Mint, or Manjaro. Ubuntu is based off of Debian, which is really highly supported and is constantly up to date, really popular, and Ubuntu is also really popular. Linux Mint's based off Ubuntu and is also really popular, kept up to date. Manjaro is based off of Arch and is also really up to date. Manjaro is a little bit harder to use than Linux Mint and Ubuntu, but you can still kind of utilize it. Apparently, okay, I guess I could have just downloaded SteamOS. I could just run my PC like it was a Steam Deck. I mean, I'm sure it would have. Yes, it's just a clone of SteamOS on the Steam Deck. Man, how do you download this? I'm just curious. No NVIDIA support. Well, that sucks if you have an NVIDIA graphics driver. Bugs and glitches still. Yeah, I'll definitely be testing this in a virtual machine. But don't worry about these. They put Manjaro really low on this list too. Unstable and known to break too often. I don't know if that's 100% accurate there. Some ordinary gamers, I think, might bear to differ, or beg to differ. Linux Mint, they put Linux Mint pretty low. What cons? None. Why is it this low, dude? I don't know why it's this low if it has no cons, and that's also a lie. Dude, this is literally just RetroArch. No con. Then why is it this low? It's just an operating system that's basically just running RetroArch. So really, it's just an OS to like put on your Raspberry Pi if you don't want to use the Raspberry Pi operating system anymore. Here, but I'll go ahead and I'll show you how, how you can install the easy way to install, for example, the Dolphin emulator on Ubuntu. You just open up Snap Store, search it, and you just click install. Type in your password, and then it'll just install it. And it's basically running the terminal command in the background without a visual terminal. The other way you could do it is if you open terminal, and you could do sudo apt install dolphin -emulator, and then you would press enter, and then it would ask you for your password, and then you'd be done with it. But now look, it's already installed. Now I can search Dolphin. Oh, sorry, not. It's kind of confusing because Dolphin's also the name of my file manager. But if I do make sure to open Dolphin emulator, it popped up over here. If authorized, Dolphin can collect data on its performance and features. I mean, I don't mind if the Dolphin team knows like what I'm doing. Then I'm sure we could go and go to other locations on the computer, try to find another area where we can where we can home. How about on my disk? Other locations. Yeah, it's not gonna. 16.8 gigs available. That's impossible, guys. I mean, I'll figure out how to set up Dolphin properly later, but you know, it's there. I haven't done it yet I haven't tested it yet on Linux, so I don't know how it's gonna work. But there's things science and math. Yeah, formula editor. Oh yeah, this does come with an Office suite. It's called LibreOffice. It's basically like OpenOffice, so it's a free open source Office software. Me personally, not as good as Microsoft Office, but the thing is, you can just, if you use Microsoft Office, you probably have Office 365, so you can just use Office 365, which has a web version, and just use the web version on your computer. But yeah, literally, this stuff runs fine. How long have I been recording? 27 minutes. Yeah, we'll keep on going. The only thing I'm complaining about is that my OBS Studio doesn't have a game capture option. I mean, I'm sure a window capture will work just fine for capturing video games, but that's the only complaint I have about it. But if we just open up the Minecraft launcher, which another way you can install software is there's these things called .deb files. So if you have a Debian/Ubuntu based operating system, you can download a .deb file and make sure to open it with a software installer, it will software update or whatever software installer it'll come with. Here we can kind of go and look at one. I probably have something in here I could open with that. multimc.deb. If I just opened this with software install, it would pop this up. It'll open up Snap Store, open this thing up, and then if this wasn't installed, I could then click install, enter my admin password, and it'll just install it, so that you don't have to use a terminal. So it's very easy. Now, the terminal, it'll just be called terminal if if you're using the default desktop environment, GNOME. But if you use KDE Plasma, it's going to be called console. So sudo, it stands for super user. That super user, that means you're going to do a super user command or an admin command. Then apt, this will speak to your package manager. So if you're using an Arch-based distribution, you'll type in pacman, because that's your package manager. If you're using something that's based off like Red Hat or Fedora, it'll be yum, because that's your package manager. if you are using Debian/Ubuntu base, apt, which is apt, that'll be your package manager. Then install, and then the name of the package. So I think if I did like Minecraft-launcher, it would install it. Look, put in your password, but if you look, Minecraft Launcher is already on its newest version, so it didn't need to install it or anything. Or you can do this with dolphin-emulator. No apt. Oh yeah, you can also use snap. So if I did like snap install dolphin-emulator, it could also work. It just depends what you're doing. And then if you ever have any errors like this, go to the forums, they'll help you. But like for example, we'll go ahead and yeah, that's right guys, StevoCraft's gonna be coming back. Don't you worry. But for now, let's go to the latest version of Minecraft. I'm just gonna change the RAM argument to 4 gigs, so it's running 4 gigs of RAM. I accidentally clicked the wrong one to launch, but we'll fix that. But yeah, so, and it opened over on this window, but my PC also has 32 gigs of RAM on it. Now it used to have 16 gigs, but I made sure to upgrade that to make it a more beefy boy, just because it'll work better. Anyways, come on, load Minecraft, load for me. Basically, I'm just filming this video and then getting ready for work right after. This is what I'm doing. I'm still getting my stuff set up, and I got my wallpaper. Literally, I went here and clicked configure desktop and wallpaper. But here, we'll go on ahead and we'll reopen this. And it runs really fast. It actually uses less RAM than Windows did. That's another reason why I switched. Because with Windows, it's like it was like the computer would be doing nothing, and I had like 4 gigs of RAM usage on a 16 gig system, and when I put 32 gigs on it, I think it used like even more RAM usage. But if we just create a new world real quick, test, and let's see, and it'll load up really fast. I mean, it already loaded up fast on when this was Windows anyways, so, but it'll still load up. It's going a little bit slower because I'm recording, but still. So, and look, generating a new world in. And now, and if I hit F3, you can see my RAM usage. So, I'm 60 FPS. You can see what it's doing to my GPU and my memory, which is my RAM, and it's running just fine on this on here. It runs just fine. We can even do a multiplayer server. Let's go to Hypixel. Let's go ahead and we'll log on to Hypixel, and you can see it's running really smooth. I actually have no idea if my video is lagging or not, by the way, because I'm not looking at OBS in the moment. But actually, I could pull this up to the corner. Yeah, I guess pull this up to the corner so I can like see. But yeah, you can see it's working just fine. But see, so yeah. But I just wanted to make this little video just to kind of show off like what I'm doing with my computer. But I will still all my files that, oh yeah, I do have Betacraft. In fact, Betacraft has a new launcher. It's still in alpha though. But it's a new launcher. Of course, with Linux, I could either use the universal jar file, and as long as I have the Java runtime environment installed, it'll work. Or I could install this new thing, and because I'm running Ubuntu, it had a .deb file that I was just able to install and run. And look, it even fixed sound on Linux. So even so a third-party launcher like Betacraft or Multi-MC do have support on Linux as well. They work. They have Linux support. They work. So even those third-party Minecraft launchers do just fine. But anyways, this is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoy. If you did, leave a like on it. If it's one of the first videos that you see by me, please do consider subscribing to the channel. I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye. Take care.